My name is James Fischer. I'm the research director here at White Memorial, and we're standing out at Catlin Marsh. We have been doing a project out here for many years, and I wanted to introduce you to the project and how it's performed. The problem we're trying to address is this plant. It's called Purple Loosestrife, and it's commonly found in a lot of different wetlands throughout the Northeast. It's considered an invasive plant, and it was introduced from another continent to our own. Unfortunately, we did the introduction. Humans did the introduction. So to control this plant, we have to think about maybe some of its. We had to think about some of its native range, and we're using a beetle that's native to this plant and controls this plant and where it's indigenous. The beetle lives on the plant now, and we introduced it to this population, and you can see that some of these plants have some damage on the plant. There's little holes chewed into them, and that's from the beetle. Just a second. Sure. And that's from the beetle chewing on the plant. So to introduce this beetle to our population, we have to foster beetles on plants that we grow on our own in a small little pool of water. And then when we go out and we collect the beetles, the adults, and we then take those beetles and put them on our plants that we're growing and put a net around them so that it's sort of an artificial environment that prevents predators from eating the beetles. And so we have to sort of raise a little crop of them. And then we take those plants and bring them out into the marsh and sort of inoculate the marshes with these beetles. This is about the 8th or 9th year that we've been doing this here at White Memorial, and we've had generally some good success. The beetles chew on the plant so badly that it actually prevents the plant from flowering and producing seeds. The seeds there's many hundreds of thousands of seeds per plant that are produced, and the seeds are viable for a very long time, almost 100 years in some cases. So this has to be a control agent that can persist for a very long time, and so that's why it's going to take us probably at least 10 years to really ensure that this population is stable and sustainable. To identify Purple Loosestrife, there are some real common characteristics that you can use. First, what we like to look for are leaves that are opposite. On either side of the stem, they're opposite. You can see there's a pair of leaves on either side of the stem, and they can be dark green and they're long and tapered towards the end. Another quality that's actually kind of attractive is that the stem is square. There are ridges and edges to the stem, and so it feels like a squared stem in your hand. The name Purple Loosestrife comes from the fact that when this plant is flowering, it produces a real long spike of tiny little flowers that are all purple. And you'll see them in other wetlands, and sometimes even here at White Memorial, and those would be the marshes where we still have to introduce the beetle. And they'll be flowering in late July and into August in some places. This is truly a wetland. These soils are quite wet right now, and fairly permanently so. They can go through a regime that maybe during the drier seasons, the middle of the summer, the middle of the winter, you might not find as much water out here, but in very close proximity you can see pools of water and small streams that flow through here. And this is very close to the Bantam River, so this area is very much influenced by the Bantam River. Take a look around at the vegetation, at least here at Catlin Marsh. We have a rather large, what looks like a meadow in many ways, and there are lots of grasses and grass-like plants growing in here. We have reed canary grass, which unfortunately is another introduced and invasive species. that commonly occurs on these floodplains. We have big tussocks of carex, large tussocks. They just look like great big mounds of grass. And this is a grass-like plant of carex, and here are some other grass-like plants, and you can see the seed head, seed and flower head on top of the plants, these spikes, these rushes. Around the marsh itself is surrounded by shrubs, lots of different kinds of shrubs, and most of them are quite adaptable, or quite adapted to wet areas. Here's arrowwood, a native species. Here's silky dogwood, another native. Here's a honeysuckle, introduced an invasive honeysuckle, so that's a real problem around here. There are different species of roses, multiflora rose, some swamp rose. If you look out over the marsh itself, you can see how this is all sort of coming together and how it all coalesces. And this is all because of the flooding regime that occurs in this habitat that encourages this habitat to persist. That's why we don't manipulate water levels here at White Memorial. We just let the flooding occur seasonally and naturally. When we collect the beetles, we have to use a little device that we've sort of made back at the office. It's called an aspirator. What it is we just used a soda bottle here to sort of serve as a reservoir for us to collect the beetles in. But we have a straw that goes through the lip of the bottle cap. And we've wound a little bit of mesh around that lip. That way we can create a vacuum by sucking on it as if you're sucking on a drinking straw. But the mesh prevents the bugs from getting swallowed by you. Don't need any more added protein. And we have this other piece of hose that we use to sort of act as the vacuum head. So to collect beetles, we have to look really carefully because they're kind of small. And then when you find one, you suck in, and then you have a beetle inside the bottle. A beetle in a bottle. And then we take the beetles and we put them on Purple Loosestrife plants that we raise. Here's the larva of the beetle that we're looking for. See, it's on the leaf and it's chewing away. And by the action of it chewing, it leaves really the remnants of the leaf. We call that skeletonizing the leaf. Looks like just the skeletal remains of the leaf.